Trust is the most important thing in marriage because trust fuels investment. Really, if you think about it, you put your money in the bank because you trust the bank to be able to handle it, right? Well, you put your heart and soul and life and become one with another person because you invest in them because you think they're going to be worthy of that investment and handle that well. So we talk about this trust thing, in the big sense, and it's absolutely important. It's the most important thing that God says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Here's what we got to do, though. We got to break that down to what is it that builds trust. Now, in just a little bit of time here, I'm going to race over 5 things. All right? Number one, we trust somebody when we feel like they understand us and know us and understand our needs. So many marriages, the trust breaks down because they're not truly listening to each other about how it feels to be on the other side of them, or how it feels to be going through whatever that spouse is going through, or how one person's behaviors are affecting the other. See, a lot of times you get into conflict, first thing you want to do is explain to them why they shouldn't hurt, or why, it's because of you, or this and the other. Understand, empathize, listen. The more you understand and take an attitude of walking in their shoes and what they're experiencing without defending yourself or criticizing or any of that, that builds trust. Number 2, do they know your intent, your motive towards them? Is your motive in this marriage to be happy yourself? Is your motive on the vacation that you want the vacation you want? Is your motive when you go to dinner to get your needs met? Is your motive in sex for your gratification only? See, motive is at the heart of trust. You want your spouse to feel like, my spouse has my back. They get up in the morning thinking about how can they make my life and my day, my time with the kids, my hurts, my struggles, how can they make all of that work the best for me? In other words, their orientation on this planet is that they exist for the other one, okay? Now, I'm not talking about you don't have a life of your own, but I'm talking about go past neutral. This isn't a win-win. This is, I want you to win even when it's costing me. Okay? So it's wanting the best for each other. And when your spouse knows that you want the best for them, even when you make decisions that might be painful for them, you say, I know this is going to be hard for us, but we gotta make this move, or we gotta do this, or whatever it is, or I gotta go do this, or whatever. They trust it even though they don't agree with it because they know you've got their interest at heart. So motive. The third thing is competency. Competency, what does that have to do with it? Well, I'm not going to trust a bank that isn't competent in locking the door at night, right, and doing what I've entrusted to them. And so when you talk about, you're not going to trust a surgeon that's not competent just because they care about you and are for you. If they're not competent to cut on the right leg with the right instrument, then we're not going to trust them. So look at a marriage this way. There are so many marriages that fail or struggle because each party has not developed the competencies required to be married. Okay, there's relational competencies, the ability to resolve conflict, the ability to provide support, the ability to stand up and have good boundaries, the ability to come through on what you've been entrusted to do. Is one of you in charge of the finances? If you organize it that way, then do it well. Is one of you in charge of this part of the home and this part? Then do your job well or develop the skills you need. We depend on each other in marriage. And marriage is going to go better when what I'm depending on you for, you're really competent to pull it off. I ask you to take care of the kids, right, for a weekend. Well, what kind of job rating do you get? You're on the couch watching, the remote all weekend, or are you able to think about planning something and taking them to do what they need and this and the other? Trusting each other is not just about love and faithfulness. It's also about, are you good at life in the things that you need each other to do, to depend on? Can I depend on you to show up? Can I depend on you to be on time? Can I depend on you to not overspend and bankrupt us? Can I depend on you to, all this other stuff? And closely related to that one is the next one, which is character. Not only lie, cheating, and stealing. That obviously you can't lie, cheat, and steal. But I'm talking about the other aspects of character: compassion, forgiveness, perseverance, non-reactivity, mutual affection, self-control, patience. You want to build trust? Have a partner that you can look at and say, I remember a Christian leader's wife told me one time, said, you know what? In whatever he's ever done to, step on my toes or hurt me or, whatever it is, she said, every time I've ever told him about it, he listened, and I never really saw that behavior again. I went, oh my gosh, if every marriage would say that. Because they had the character to listen and to repent and say, I want to make that better, and to work on themselves. And all these traits, especially compassion and understanding and faithfulness and diligence and perseverance, all of those character things. And then the last one is this: track record. We trust a track record. Okay? If I got a problem and I bring it to you and I say, this hurt me or whatever, and you blow up and get defensive, what am I going to do the next time I have a problem? Because the track record is, I can't talk to you about stuff like this. Or the track record is, I can't depend on you in this way or whatever. Find out what's important to each other and develop track records that are trustworthy. If you do those 5 things, a lot of trust there. And overarching all of that, the most trustworthy spouse is the one that their spouse can look at them and say, that is a person who loves God. That's a person who walks with God. That's a person who lives out the spiritual practices of pursuing God and health and getting better. That's a trustworthy person.